Hello there, this is an update on the RPi Broker project. Today is Friday, September 8th, 2017, and this is an update on the prototype demo. I'll be posting this video to YouTube and then embedding it in a blog entry on rpibroker.org. Let me show you a little bit before I dive in here on how to access more information on RPi Broker. This is the project page on rpiovn.org. And you can also get to the blog on rpibroker.org. And all the code's up on GitHub. Real quick, what RPi Broker is it aspires to create a marketplace offering virtual private servers, similar to DigitalOcean and Vultr, except they use Raspberry Pis or other IoT devices, and the focus is less on high reliability and high bandwidth and more on anonymity and censorship, protecting anti-censorship. And so just real quick, in a nutshell, the way RPi Broker works is it creates a series of reverse SSH connections to a central server and serves up an SSH connection back to the device, and then also opens up ports on a subdomain on rpibroker.org that points to port 80 and port 443 on the device, so that it can serve up web pages and also encrypted web pages. So just real quick, let me show you where we're at in the project. So far, here is the workflow that has been developed. I'm going to do a show and tell and walk through each bullet point here and show you how it's actually working in the prototype. So right now the user goes to rpibroker.org and logs into the marketplace dashboard, and they click the add new device button in the owned devices view, and that generates a GUID for the device. Let me show you what that looks like. Here is the market. You go to rpibroker.org/market. Right now I do not have this open to the public, but I will be opening this up soon, so check back. This is actually running on Connext CMS, which you can find out more about that at connextcms.com. This is packaged as a Connext CMS site template. And so what I was talking about in that bullet point is the own devices view inside the marketplace. And here is a device I was using earlier. I'm just going to delete that. So let's just refresh the window so we know we're working with a fresh load of the marketplace. Go to the own devices. I'm going to add a device. I'm going to give it a name and a description, and then it's going to come up, and this is the summary of my own device. So the idea is that this represents a Raspberry Pi device that I am going to rent out on the marketplace, and then people who are interested in renting the device would go to the rentals tab in their account, or actually they would go to the marketplace, find the different devices that are available. They would rent them, and then it would show up in their rental tab, and they would be able to pay with Bitcoin or over PayPal and rent the device. And this view displays their stats and network connections and ways to connect to the device. And the people who own the devices would go here and register their devices to enter them in the marketplace to be rented. So this is currently under development. All these views I just showed you, this is the first part that has been developed so far. So right now we just added the device to the server. It's not yet in the marketplace, and it's been assigned this device ID. So here is how you would register your device with the marketplace. Let me just clear this out. So this is PuTTY, and I have an SSH connection to port 22 on the Raspberry Pi, so it's the command line. And I just downloaded or cloned the RPi Broker repository, which you can get to from the RPi Broker project page. And this is the GitHub, so you would clone it by copying this GitHub URL and go git clone and then paste it in there. But I've already done that. Directory already exists. That's just how you set it up. So I'm going into the repository, going to the client directory because we're on the Raspberry Pi, and that's the client. And the server directory contains the Connect CMS site template files. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this device GUID.json file using nano. I'm going to remove the old device ID that I had in there, and going back to the marketplace, I'm going to copy this device ID and paste it in here, because that's what the Raspberry Pi side of the code, the client code, needs to register it. And then let's see, I'm currently running Node version 4.8.4, and I am going to run the register device app. And now what it's doing is it's making an AJAX call to the server and registering itself with the device ID, and the server generates a port number and a username and password. And so this allows you to create a reverse SSH connection to a Docker container running on the server, and launch a Docker container on the Raspberry Pi with an SSH server running on this port. So these are the three pieces of information that you need that are generated by the server in order to register your device in the marketplace. So now that that's been done, in fact, I'm just going to copy this to a notepad right there. And now I'm going to run the build image. This is going to build the Docker image using the username and password and port number that was generated by the server. And I already had a similar image, so it's using a cache, so that's why it's going so fast. The first time that you run this, it'll probably take a little while. Okay, so the Docker image has been built, and now I'm going to run it. And if I do Docker PS, I can see the container running there. And now I can open up a new SSH connection, and I can connect to rpibroker.org, and using the port that I'm tunneling to, 6008. I'm going to accept the RSA key, and I'm going to use this login name and this password. There we go. I didn't copy the password correctly. Okay, so I am now inside of a Docker container inside of the Raspberry Pi, and I'm connecting to it through the internet. Even though the device is physically sitting next to me, it doesn't matter. This device could be located anywhere in the world. It could be behind any firewall, and I'm still got command line access to it, and I can run a web server, I can run a VPN, I can run a Tor node, I can run an I2P node, I can do whatever I want. This is now just a general purpose server, albeit low power, but very useful. And this is the prototype that's been developed so far. So what we did is we went to the marketplace, we did the add new device, we copied the GUID to this device GUID JSON on the Raspberry Pi, and then ran the, I actually renamed this to register device, and which that app, that's a Node app, and it reads this JSON file, makes the register API call on the server. The server returned the username, password, and the SSH forwarding port. And the Pi built the Docker file and the reverse tunnel.js file. And then we ran the Docker container. And when the Docker container came back up, it ran this generated reverse tunnel.js script, also in Node, and forwarded the Docker container's SSH port to the rpibroker server. So that's basically it in a nutshell. This is very complicated set of steps, but as you can see, the user interface is being developed to make this whole process pretty simple. It's just a matter of running a few scripts. And so next steps that I need help with, if you are interested in contributing to this project, is the Docker container running on the Raspberry Pi should be encrypted. That way the device owner doesn't actually have any way of getting into the renter's data. and that's going to be very important for security. Right now, the Docker container simply runs in memory, and it doesn't have any data persisted to the SD card on the Raspberry Pi. And because SD cards are a little fluky, I think the standard installation is going to be having a flash drive plugged into one of the USB ports on the RPi, and then mounting that as an encrypted file system. So this technology exists. It's not going to be very hard to implement. I've already found several tutorials on the internet that'll do it. This is just one of the next big things that needs to happen. One of the next big things that need to happen is creating a subdomain on RPi broker.org. So, for instance, when you generate that username and password and the port, it would also at the same time generate a subdomain, just some algorithmically generated subdomain like the username and password were. And that would allow people to connect to serve up web pages with the Raspberry Pi on port 80 or port 443, which is SSL and HTTPS. That's the port used for that. Again, this is just a node library that needs to be implemented. This technology is well defined. Not going to be a big deal to implement that. A few things to really give this project, to get it off on the right start and give it a little bit more authority is as the node code is developed for this application, both on the client and the server, we should be building unit tests code. Right now, this user interface is written in Backbone because that's how most Connect CMS applications are written, but I plan to actually end up writing it in Vue.js as that's kind of the new up-and-coming framework. And of course we're going to need to do unit testing of that code as well, probably in Jasmine, and then the server side will probably be tested in Mocha, but it might be tested in Jasmine as well. So these are really the next big things that need to happen, and I'm going to have my hands full with just doing the user interface, which I think is the most important right now, since that will be critical to people just adopting it and bootstrapping a marketplace, a real live marketplace. But these are all areas that need to be developed and will be developed and could really use some help. So check out RPi broker.org or rpiovn.org and contact me, Chris Troutner. My contact information is on both those sites if you want to participate. Thank you.